Let's start with Jenna, who leads partnership and engagement strategy with nonprofits and political campaigns for Twitter. Jenna's role is to build strong relationships with associations, nonprofits, and political campaigns to increase both organic and paid engagement on the platform. And she is a former associate publisher of The New Republic. Jenna, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. Well, I want to start by saying that I'm really excited because when I checked Twitter about 20 minutes ago, hashtag MCON13 was trending nationally. Woo-hoo. So that's great. It lasted for a few minutes. I was able to take a quick screenshot, so it's a moment in time that we'll always have. So keep up the great tweeting. So I'm really excited to be here today to talk about Twitter and millennials. And I want to start from a high level. So you'll sometimes hear us say, Twitter is the shortest distance between you and what interests you most. And essentially what we mean by that is that every user has the ability to come to Twitter, sign up for an account, and find the causes, individuals, sports teams, all the things that that person is interested in or passionate about, and you're able to follow those. And you're able to curate that feed based on what you care about and what you're interested in. And as a result of that, that distance between you and that cause becomes shorter. Another way you'll hear us describe Twitter is Twitter brings you closer. And that idea is that there are so many moments that are happening globally, and Twitter actually gives you that window into that world. So it can allow you to feel like you're there and to experience that moment without actually being there. So a few examples I'll share that sort of lend itself to this idea of Twitter brings you closer. One of my favorites is thinking about the 2012 election. When Barack Obama won, he sent out a tweet the night that he won the re-election. And it was just 3 words, many of you might remember it. It said, 4 more years. And in that tweet, he embedded a photo of himself hugging his wife, First Lady Michelle Obama. It was a pretty intimate moment. You know, the two of them as a married couple recognizing that he had just won the presidency for the 2nd time. But what it did was it allowed everybody, both within the nation and globally, to feel like they were there and to feel like they had that access to the president and to bring themselves closer to that moment. And just as a side note, that's actually the most retweeted tweet of all time on Twitter. So you can think about the impact that that has in that one moment in time. You know, another example to think about this idea of bringing you closer, many of you might remember James Cameron actually tweeting from the bottom of the ocean floor. There are probably people all over the world that would love to go to the bottom of the ocean floor. But it's probably unlikely that many of those things or many of those people are going to be able to do that at some point. But the fact that Twitter allows you to be there and to experience that moment is quite powerful. And thinking about it also with global moments, like the 2012 Summer Olympics. So again, this is this idea that the platform has the ability to get you close to the things that you care about and really to engage in that powerful sort of way. So thinking about Twitter as a platform in general, it's helpful to think about what these numbers look like. So we serve 1 billion tweets every 2.5 days. An interesting fact is that it took us 3 years, 2 months, and a day to serve our first billion tweets. So you can see how fast the platform is growing. And in addition to that, so many of these conversations that are taking place in this billion tweets every 2.5 days are conversations between this audience you're trying to reach, which is the millennial generation. So clearly the idea here is how do you tune in to the conversations that are taking place between this audience that you care about, and how do you leverage that? And in addition to that, Twitter has 200 million users globally. So transitioning from sort of Twitter in general, now I really want to talk about Twitter and the millennial generation. So when we look at Twitter's online audience, and so keep in mind when I say online, I'm thinking about desktop and laptop. We know that 42% of our US online unique users are between the ages of 18 and 34. So no major surprise here. We know that millennials are digital natives. They are comfortable with technology. But what's important to note is that we know that millennials are using Twitter to get their news. So they're logging on regularly and trying to understand what's happening in the world and how do I make this relevant to me. But in addition to that, we know that millennials are actually often using Twitter to first engage with causes and organizations. This might be their first point where they come to look up your organization and find out, am I interested? So it makes it incredibly important that the bio and that 5 minutes that that individual might spend just checking out your Twitter profile is saying all the things that you want it to say, so that that first interaction makes that individual feel like this is an account that I want to follow, and also this is something that I'm interested in and this content is relevant for me. And so one of the really important things that I think is just crucial to the millennial generation, but we haven't touched on a lot today, is mobile. So Twitter, as you know, was born mobile. We are clearly a mobile platform. And what's fascinating is that millennials are mobile first. So you'll see here that when we actually dive into Twitter's mobile unique users, you'll see that number before, which was 42%, goes up to 49% of Twitter's US mobile unique users between the ages of 18 and 34. I read this great article recently from Adweek, and it basically said that millennials view smartphones as their fifth limb. And in addition to that, they think that it prevents FOMO. So for those of you who are not familiar with this term, it stands for fear of missing out. So millennials want to be connected at all times. They want to know what is happening, and they want to feel like they always are not missing out on anything. And so not only smartphones, but Twitter allows for that. So millennials are a busy group of people. You're running from place to place. But if you have the ability to pull out that phone while you're waiting in line at the grocery store, or while you're taking care of something or walking to work, it's just that quick snippet of time that you can pull up Twitter, you can quickly engage and scroll through, and you can really get a sense of what's happening in my world that I'm interested in. So the mobile piece is quite crucial. So I want to give a sort of Twitter for good example. So we've talked about Twitter, we've talked about Twitter and millennials, and now what I want to do is think about Twitter for good. So we've heard a lot about water today. So I'm going to also talk about Charity Water. As you know, Charity Water is the nonprofit organization that is looking to bring clean and safe drinking water to everybody in the world. And they did a really powerful campaign with Twitter earlier this year. March 22nd is World Water Day. And so they wanted to go big, and they wanted to find out how can we tap into Twitter, how can we tap into the younger audiences, and get them to act for us. And what they did was they launched this campaign around birthdays. And the idea is that you can actually go to Charity Water, and any individual can pledge their birthday. And so what that means is that you sign up, you can create some form of a donation page, and all of your friends and everybody that you know within your networks can donate money. And all of that money for your birthday is going to go directly towards providing clean and safe drinking water to people around the world. So Charity Water knew, great idea, but how do we get it out there? How do we get people to activate? And so Twitter was what they really chose to focus on in terms of platforms. So what you'll see is they started a few days before. This tweet's actually from March 19th, so just a few days in advance of World Water Day. And they really wanted to tease content and get people excited for what was coming and give them a little bit of a lead in. So you'll notice here they're tweeting, World Water Day is Friday, a behind the scenes peek at the video we're launching. Hint, it's all about birthdays. So this sparked conversation. This got people interested. And what's fascinating is they took this to the next level by trying to involve millennials themselves, what we call VITs, very important tweeters, or VIPs, same thing. So you'll notice what they did was they engaged with celebrities and people that had incredible networks with the millennial generation, such as Jessica Biel. And Jessica Biel was able to tweet out, today is World Water Day, want to change the world, pledge your next birthday. And you can see she embedded a photo. In addition to that, Indianapolis Colts quarterback Matthew Hasselbeck did the same. He gave up his 35th birthday. So the important information here at the end of the day was that this was the top traffic day to charitywater.com in 2013. So not only does it show that they were able to create a compelling campaign, they were able to use the right platform, and they were able to leverage the millennial generation to get that done. So I want to end with a few thoughts, but I really want to focus in on some of Twitter's core principles, one of which is to reach every person on the planet. So as a company, that's a lofty goal, but we really feel strongly that everybody should have the ability to communicate and to interact with the things that they care about. But in addition to that, the other two core principles that are crucial here are thinking about seeking diverse perspectives and innovating through experimentation. And I believe that if your organizations are able to take both of those things in mind, to innovate, to think through things, to try things, to look for different viewpoints, that you have the ability to potentially reach that generation and to drive change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's turn to Jessica. Jessica Mason manages the YouTube for Good team. In her role at YouTube, Jessica is charged with creating tools and services nonprofits, educators, and activists can use to spread their stories. So she's plugged into the most creative ways video can drive your cause campaigns. Prior to YouTube, Jessica led awareness campaigns for the Global Poverty Project at 80 schools and universities, and she was named an NYU Reynolds Scholar in Social Entrepreneurship. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. So quick poll of the room. How many people in this room have heard of YouTube? Oh, good. All right. We're off to a good start. How many people in the room have seen Charlie Bit My Finger? All right. Pretty good. How about David After Dentist, the one with the boy in the car? He's a little hopped up on laughing gas still. OK, fair enough. It's a pretty good number. Not as good as Charlie Bit My Finger. And how many people in the room have watched a video of a cute cat or dog? That should certainly be everybody. So what we're talking about there is really what we consider the first phase of YouTube. So YouTube just turned 8 years old. We think we're doing pretty well for an 8-year-old. And that first phase of YouTube was all about the one-off videos, the home videos, the viral videos that were uploaded in those first few years. And then in our second phase, we started to see a lot of music videos. We became this generation's MTV. We also started to see that there were creators that were making series. They were making episodic content. They were doing things like cooking shows, like vegan cooking shows, like barbecue shows. They were doing makeup tutorials and fitness shows, yoga channels. And as we started to see this, we started a program where essentially they could join the program, we'd put ads against their videos, and then every month, we'd send them a check in the mail for the majority of that ad revenue. We now have thousands of YouTube creators that are making 6 figures a year off of their YouTube revenue, which is pretty incredible. So born out of these creators doing all of this hard work, making these beautiful series, and running these channels on YouTube, we entered our third phase. And that's all about the channel. It's about having this hub where whether you're running an organization or a vegan cooking show, you can go and post regular content. You can do different series, all within this one channel. And so now we see that our users, especially millennials, go and they subscribe to these channels. And then what happens is they get regular updates on all of the content they love, the things that they're turning to YouTube for news, for education, for politics, for music, for anything that they want, whether it's as niche as crocheting with chopsticks to all of the vegan cooking that I keep mentioning. We see these people tuning in and asking for more and more of the content that they love. And as a result, we can tell them more about what they might like, and they then subscribe to more and more content. So another poll for the room. How many people have seen Gangnam Style? Yes. So that Korean pop hit was actually posted last year this week, so it just celebrated its 1-year anniversary. And in that 1 year, people all around the world have watched 3 times as much Korean pop music as they did previously. So this generation, it's all about finding what you love, and then finding more content. So to give you an idea of where YouTube is now in this third phase that we really considered powered by millennials, we're now at 1 billion unique users every single month. We have those users watch over 6 billion hours of video every month. 1 out of every 4 videos on YouTube comes from a mobile device, and we reach more 18 to 34-year-olds than any cable network in the US, which is pretty incredible reach. Now, Nielsen actually calls this generation Generation C, and that's because of their connected behavior that drives this YouTube usage. And so it's the first generation that's grown up with this idea that they can watch whatever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. And so they're not used to having to sit down at 8 p.m. on 1988 and watch, The Cosby Show with 50% of American households. In fact, they're used to getting whatever type of content they want right there, whether it's on their mobile device, their tablet, their desktop, their TV. And so we've seen Generation C on YouTube behave in 4 ways. They create content, they're part of a community, they're connected, and they curate. And so I'm going to talk about 4 quick social good examples that really implement these principles and show how millennials are engaging and show how these social good examples have engaged with millennials. So the first example is Lauren Luke.
Hiya everyone, I'm sorry I haven't been online much lately, but I'm back, I'm here. I've had a bit of a rough time, but I'm going to be doing a video today on how to cover up. I'm first going to start with some foundation. If you apply a colour that is just gently off-tone with your own skin tone, you can cover any fresh bruising.
So Lauren is an incredibly popular makeup artist in the UK. She has hundreds of millions of views on her YouTube channel. And she wanted to get involved with a cause. In fact, she wanted to make a statement about domestic violence. So what did she do? She created a video to reach her millions of millennial fans. And she created this very jarring video about having a black eye. And she went through the video just like it was any one of her other makeup tutorials and taught how you would cover up a black eye with foundation. At the very end of the video, she made it clear that it was on behalf of a domestic violence organization. And she asked her viewers to donate whatever they could to volunteer hours. And she drove people's eyeballs to this organization, raised awareness, volunteer hours, and funds for them. What's interesting about Lauren is when she wanted to make a change, she created a video on behalf of this organization. So she notched off our first C. Now, she also shared this video with her community, which is our next C.
Stand on the edge of a train station platform, drive around the boom gates at a level crossing, run across the tracks between the platforms. They may not rhyme, but they're quite possibly the dumbest ways to die. The dumbest ways to die. The dumbest ways to die. So many dumb ways to die.
Be safe around trains. A message from Metro.
So Metro Trains in Australia wanted to reach an audience about a safety message to an audience that did not want to hear a safety message. And so they thought long and hard about how to do this, and they hired an agency that came up with this video that uses very dark humor, clearly, to get across this message about safety. And people shared it rapidly. It spread like wildfire across the internet. Within just a few days, it had 5 million views, which, just to give you an idea, that's roughly the number of people that would tune in for, let's say, the final season, or the final episode of the Simpsons season finale. So it's a huge number just in the first few days. Within 2 weeks, they had accumulated about $50 million worth of ad value just from the reach of this video. It's currently now at about 53 million views. It was one of the most viewed videos of 2012. And Metro Trains has actually reported a 30% decrease in near-miss accidents in their train stations. So it's pretty incredible. And it's a really incredible example of what happens when you give somebody content that they're going to want to share with their community and with everybody that they know. And so that's another really important thing to remember about Gen Z and millennials. They're all about that community, and if you want to reach a lot of people, give them something that they want to share with their community, even if it's because it's so outrageous as this video. By the way, I really encourage you to go watch the whole thing, because as dark as it is, it really is quite hilarious. So the other thing about this generation, which I've previously mentioned, is that they're connected. They have all sorts of devices, right? And they use and watch video and expect video across all of their devices. So whether it's a mobile phone, a tablet, their desktop, or their TV, they're watching YouTube on all of them. And recently I had a top nonprofit organization come to me and say, we're planning our September campaign. We want to start with mobile. We want it to be all about mobile and work across all devices. And that's the exact right approach. And so I'm going to show you another example of a campaign that worked really, really well across mobile.
And so in protest of this global tragedy, until this issue is resolved, until everybody has access to clean water and sanitation, I will not go to the bathroom.
What?
So another water organization that we've got here, but water.org launched their Strike With Me campaign. They used Matt Damon, but as we're going to see, they also used a bunch of other YouTube stars. We'll see that in a moment. And they really launched this series of videos, and they encouraged people across all different platforms using things like Twitter. By the way, there are 700 YouTube videos shared on Twitter every single minute. And they used all of these different platforms to get these videos out there and to encourage people who might be checking Twitter, Facebook, Google+, whatever other social media outlets they're using, to find this video and watch. And as a result, they had huge success on mobile. But they also realized that Matt Damon's audience is roughly 35 to 45-year-old women. And that's a surprise. And that's not the audience that they wanted to reach. And so they thought, how do we reach this millennial generation? How do we really make sure that they're watching this stuff? And we talked about one of the ways that millennials really engage is they curate content. They find the content that they want to watch. They find it through existing stars they know about, through existing influencers they know about, and they pull it all together in playlists. And they make these playlists around different categories and topics. And so water.org set out and they contacted 8 different YouTube stars with big millennial followings. And they had those 8 YouTube stars all get together in sketches with Matt Damon, and that achieved a few things. First, it gave water.org access to a millennial audience that these YouTube stars had, but Matt Damon didn't. So a really great example of using community. But it also gave them the ability to have a series of videos. So for the 3 months leading up to World Water Day, they continuously put out new videos and created these curated playlists that anyone interested in comedy or water, or the YouTube stars participating in them, could go watch and find curated information. So I'll show you another example of that.
Many people in the world lack access to clean water and sanitation, and at water.org we're trying to change that.
Okay, like when people have to drink out of faucets. That's gross, right?
And you know people put their mouths on it.
Only you, Milana. Only you do that. I could fit the whole thing in my mouth.
Okay, okay.
Oh my God.
Maybe this will help explain it. More people in the world have access to cell phones than to toilets.
Well, yeah, you can't Instagram on a toilet.
I Instagram on the toilet all the time. I even got an iPad to make bigger Instagrams.
Okay.
So when you're thinking about launching a campaign to engage millennials, to mobilize them to take action, I'll have to tell you more about some of the action that came out of this campaign later. But when you're thinking about launching that campaign, think about Gen Z. Think about them creating content, curating content, connecting, and finding community. Really think about those 4 C's when you're planning your campaign. Video is such a great way for you to reach new audiences and new millennials. Plan around those 4 C's, and I guarantee you, you're going to have a lot more success getting into us tough-to-reach millennials. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, any presentation with Matt Damon's a great one. So, and last but not least, we are so excited to have Danielle Diebler with NPR. As Director of Audience Engagement and New Ventures for NPR, Danielle is responsible for growing, broadening, and deepening the connections between NPR and its audience. And she oversees NPR's social media marketing strategies, Speakers Bureau, and campaigns such as I Heart NPR. And she's the founder of one of my favorites, Generation Listen, a new venture that seeks to connect NPR with millennial listeners. Danielle, take it away.
It's hard to follow YouTube and the funny videos here, but I'm going to try to do my best. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. And what I want to talk about today is how NPR is really building a community around millennials. As Jessica talked about, the 4 C's, and I think community is really the big one. And this is our approach. So if you look at why do we even care? Why are we spending time, energy? Why are we all here today talking about how to engage millennials? Well, if you look at who invented Google, Facebook, and Twitter, they were all founded by millennials, those under 30. Major game-changing platforms. The other key thing to what I want to talk about is disruption. I know that's a big buzzword today, but it's really true. And if you look at millennial behaviors, they're fearless, they know no boundaries, they're willing to experiment, and they're unconventional, and they're looking at tackling problems in different ways. And what we found at NPR, what I've found over the past few years and meeting a lot of millennial thought leaders, when I say I work at NPR, they're like, great, love NPR, how do I support? How can I help? So this enter Generation Listen. And this is really a new form, an entirely new integrated model of public engagement. And this is how we're approaching this. Really in 4 key categories. Brain trust. Engaging millennials with their time, their talents, and their network. It's really about their sweat equity. They want to roll up their sleeves. They want to get closer into the fold of NPR, and they want their ideas and perspectives to be heard. Also, it's about building community. NPR has a really proven, intimate connection with its listeners above a lot of other brands. And how do we bottle that, and how do we deliver that into millennials and really give millennials empowerment with NPR content? And it's about support. It's about redefining what support means. You know, back to that sweat equity. It's not about writing a check anymore. It's about donating time, donating their brains, and donating their perspectives, and entering and integrating into the dialogue at NPR. And it's about digital relevance and making sure that NPR, traditional media organization, is really successful and continues to be successful as they pivot into the digital space. So how we're looking at Generation Listen is a for-purpose startup, really. It will be self-sustainable. We've just got off the ground in March at South by Southwest. We launched. We are mission-based and support the NPR mission. It's a movement to connect NPR and public radio with younger audience who share our curiosity about the world and our passion for creating a more informed and civically engaged public. So what we found with young donors is that they have completely different behaviors than older donors. And Forbes magazine actually quoted this, and it's so true in what we're finding, that they're determined to innovate. And so philanthropy makes a bigger difference, and they want philanthropy. They want to change the way it operates, and they want it to reflect their values. And they want to get closer under the fold. So we're looking at this as a new model of engagement, and right now we're building the foundation. And this is how our communities are sort of coming into the fold with NPR, looking at, from the community builder aspect, really at our local communities close in, looking at engaging college students in the pipeline, having college students really doing self-curated events. The other way we're engaging is millennial thought leaders. Some of our speakers here today are participating in Generation Listen and coming to listening parties and different salon dinners and really giving us their perspectives and new ideas. And which we're actually taking in and building into some of our products. And then also a Generation Listen Council. NPR relies pretty heavily on major gifts, and this is about engaging donors at this very young level and actually creating a pathway. So when they're much older and have the resources, they might think about their local station or public radio, NPR, and donating. I put this slide up here because I really wanted to show this is the face of Generation Listen. These are the 7 members. I wanted to make sure to make the point that this is really a very human element, and this is really the face. This is the tribe. This is where it all started. And I feel like you really have to start small and bring the people that are closest to your organization, closest to your philanthropy, and start engaging them and start listening. And that's what happened with this community as we build out, which has really expanded to our digital presence. And this is how we're using the different platforms, some of which we heard from today. Where we've got our Twitter feed, which we're trying to do as much personal engagement, replying to all the tweets, sending, trying to take this human connection and extend it in the digital space. We're experimenting with SoundCloud. We've got our Facebook page, and we've received some recognition in the press. And this is some of our content right now that millennials have raised their hand to say, this is what I identify with. Planet Money, NPR Music, Code Switch, TED Radio Hour. And when I think what we're doing, this programming that has made it successful, is that we're speaking of the millennial generation, not down to the millennial generation. And this is really our editorial approach. And also taking a little bit more risk, experimenting a little more. Like, for example, with Planet Money, ran a Kickstarter campaign selling T-shirts. And they reported on the entire life of a T-shirt. So that was a really successful campaign, actually as part of an editorial approach that millennials really embraced. That was successful. So now we're doing the pivot. We're really in the sausage making right now and looking to the future. And really the future here is, all these dots represent our member stations. NPR covers probably 95% of the country. What if we could connect everybody? What if we could engage all these millennials in their local communities? So that's what we're looking into the future and doing, and really partnering with our member stations and reaching out to their young listeners. A big part of Generation Listen's strategy is going to be in-person gatherings and events. And this is how we bring it online. And what we're looking at is an events hub that people can actually self-curate events. They can come to national events like at South by Southwest that we'll be doing, or really creating their own, going to their member station events. So again, it's like building this community online and offline. And we're looking at extending the brand. Sophia Bush, who's going to be the keynote speaker tonight, is a member of Generation Listen, has really been a big supporter of this effort. And really extending the brand means empowering the millennials to curate their playlists, to really take the content and go with it and build these podcasts. So we're thinking about a Generation Listen podcast connected with their member station that hopefully we can build out in the future. One of our member stations that's done an excellent job with really adopting the Generation Listen concept from the very beginning has been KUT in Austin. We launched at South by Southwest with KUT. They partnered with us in the event. We connected with their local listeners and young philanthropists after the party, and really had an extraordinary dialogue on the future of media and how we can partner together. So this is a video I want to show you that KUT put together.
Almost 50 years ago, an incredible group of young people came together to produce something new in America. And that was NPR. Now we're at a turning point. We have this incredible thing, this incredible institution that is looking for ways to stay relevant, to stay focused and sharp, and to stay vital to millions, tens of millions of people all over the country. And we have this huge opportunity to do that now, to think about different ways of taking our content, delivering it to people in new ways, connecting with people in new ways. And that's what this is about. It's our time now. It's our time to take hold, to take the torch, and to innovate, and to think about how we're going to inherit this amazing institution and make it even more relevant, even more vital for the next 50 years. And that's what this Generation Listen is going to have to do.
So I invite you all to join the tribe. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys. So there's so much we could talk about here. Why don't I start with you, Jenna, because you showed us a great example of Twitter being used for really dramatic good, but I would venture to say that people accept that millennials are really drawn to Twitter. They do not necessarily accept that the majority of millennials who are drawn to Twitter have much meaning to their engagement. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit to how millennials use Twitter and where the meaning comes from.
Sure. I mean, I think there are a few elements as to why millennials are drawn to Twitter. One of them is the element I mentioned before, which is this mobile piece, which I would sort of put in the same bucket as the convenience piece, which is there aren't a lot of barriers for millennials to be on Twitter. They all have smartphones or mobile phones of some sort that they can access pretty regularly. It's rare that they're without them. So, the ability to just sort of be there at all times is a piece that attracts them to the platform. But I also think, there are a few other elements here. One is if you think about who are the top 10 people on Twitter who have the most followers, almost all of them are millennials. So it's Justin Bieber, and it's Taylor Swift, and it's Lady Gaga, and it's Rihanna, and it's this list of people that are within that millennial generation that millennials want to interact with. So there's a compelling element there, which is the ability to get close to these individuals and the ability to get close to those individuals who are doing good. So Sophia Bush is a great example, but there are a lot of millennials in the VIP space that are using their activity on Twitter for good, and therefore, encouraging the users that follow them to get involved. So I think, those are two key elements that you see that are drawing millennials to the platform. And the third I would mention that I think is really powerful is the idea of Twitter integrating so seamlessly with so many other platforms. So if you think about TV and Twitter, it's what we call sort of the two-screen phenomenon. But it's pretty rare that any millennial is sitting and watching a live television show and not tweeting at the same time. But that's not just sports events, and that's not just the Grammys. Those are benefit concerts, and those are good moments where people can actually come together and use the platform to talk about, how to change. So I think that there is an opportunity for things to sort of move further, but I think we have a lot of good examples of how they've been able to show that they care and to get involved. One other example I would reference is RED is a global advocacy group many of you might be familiar with, and they wanted to commemorate more recently, it was the 32nd anniversary of the discovery of AIDS. And so what they did was they encouraged everybody to get involved and to share Vines. So I don't know if everybody's familiar with Vine, but it's Twitter's sort of standalone video app that allows you to create movies in 6 seconds and then embed them into your tweets and share them. And so they asked millennials and they asked people to join in and create a Vine, use this hashtag, and create a Vine that shows people how we can continue to move towards fighting against AIDS. And they saw 1,700 people create Vines within 24 hours. Sophia Bush was one of them. And many other millennials that have a lot of impact jumped in and did that too. So you see that kind of have that effect.
Yeah. So it strikes me actually, Jess, that the access goes both ways, right? When Rihanna's tweeting, you feel like you are actually talking to her. It's not this sort of mediated interaction like it has been in the past. And YouTube seems to me like it exemplifies that in some really interesting ways. So I wonder if you could really talk about how millennial use of YouTube, because again, it's a tool that seems very millennial, but how it maybe is it's unexpected, or they're using it in ways that are more about this kind of connection rather than just reflecting me.
I think there's a few things. First, in the kind of YouTube for good world, it's always astonishing to me how many people see a video, watch something, and take further action. And so that's something that it makes sense because video can pack such a powerful punch. But even something like the recent Texas filibuster that happened, it was only live streamed on YouTube. We saw that it was incredibly popular. Hundreds of thousands of people tuned in. This very local moment became national. People didn't just stop there. They weren't just commenting on it. They actually pledged $37,000 from 37 different states. Across the country. And so first, I think it's really interesting that people are taking action, but you don't see that action end at just donating money. Obviously, we see a lot of donations through Kickstarter, Indiegogo, a lot of that all coming from YouTube videos as well, but we see people also creating a town hall. So with Kony 2012, as most part people are familiar with that example, very, very viral 30-minute video about a Ugandan warlord being an incredibly controversial video and discussion. And what we saw were people were taking videos of themselves, commenting whether it was in support of Invisible Children, the organization behind the video, or against it. We saw Ugandan citizens uploading their videos. We saw the Ugandan Prime Minister upload a video and join the discussion. What was so interesting is you get all of these videos, and I think it was within the first few days, we had 40,000 response videos from people. And then Invisible Children would upload another video responding to all the response videos. And so it just kept this town hall cycle going for days and days and days. And I think that aspect and that level of engagement is so interesting because it does take some effort to videotape yourself and upload it and some,
Courage,
exactly. I was going to say something else. I'm glad I didn't. To post that publicly.
In the interest of decorum.
Do they have a bleeping effect?
No 7-second delay. And you actually told me last night that people were ordering pizzas and sending them to during the filibuster.
They were.
So real world action. Danielle, I'd be curious to hear you talk a little bit about turning millennials into advocates, because obviously these guys are maybe on a bit of a newer platform. NPR's been around a bit longer. And you're sort of able to use these tools and use lots of other tools that are coming into the marketplace like you showed us. But how do you get millennials to really evangelize for you and turn into advocates for your brand?
Right. Well, a slide that really hit me earlier was Azita's talk about the future is human. And that's how I'm really sort of, from my perspective, really seeing we're in this information age where so much is coming at us. There's so much marketed to millennials these days. Oh, yeah. And they're so hyper-connected. They're on social media. They're racing around. What I'm seeing is a little bit of a retraction to say, I'm going on a digital detox weekend with my best friends, and I'm checking my cell phone in at the door. I'll come back refreshed, and I'll get back on my platforms, but I need to just take a step back. This is, too much. That's why I think engaging with millennials really has to start from the human experience. And it's actually sitting down, listening, and engaging. Because once you do that, once you listen and you build that organic relationship, then you're golden. This is what sticks with them. You inspire them, you listen to them, you actually listen and integrate their ideas into what your organization is doing. And then that's where you gain the respect. And that's what will empower them and inspire them to advocate on your organization's behalf. And that's absolutely what I've been finding what we're doing with Generation Listen. We've started really small, and it's going like this. But it starts with a human relationship. And how do you extend that online on digital platforms? It's a challenge. But I think NPR really has a unique opportunity here because we are about sort of cutting through the clutter. Radio and audio is a very intimate experience. We've got the quality content. We just need to activate.
And your mission speaks to millennials already at a foundational level. I would love to hear you guys, because you are inside these media and platforms, talk a little bit about how you wish people could and would use your platforms. Are there things that you think are the next wave or the next bit of engagement that you can tell these leaders as a bit of a tip, a pro tip, if you will, about how to use your platforms or your brands to engage and further their causes?
Yeah, well, I think one piece that, I'm sure Jessica will agree with is, Twitter is more effective when you can bring in rich media. So, the more opportunity that you have to embed videos and photos and infographics and provide rich content. Twitter only allows you 140 characters, and I'm pretty sure that will always stay 140 characters. And it's compelling, and you can do a lot in that space, but you can do a whole lot more when you embed a video or a photo and sort of add that extra element to it. So I really always encourage thinking about ways that you can make it a richer user experience. I think that's incredibly powerful. So, I would lend itself to that and really sort of thinking about how you can make it more than just a brand or an organization. And the other piece of that, which Danielle mentioned, which is just this authenticity piece. So, be a real person. Tell somebody that there's somebody on the end of that line. It's not a company or a blank wall. That tends to be incredibly compelling, and I think that's when people want to interact and engage.
30 seconds, Jess. Oh, 30 seconds.
We've got a minute left, so 30 each.
I think the biggest thing that I see is nonprofits feel pressured to do video. They feel like they have to be making videos, and so they don't take a step back and think, what are the goals of my video, and how am I going to measure those goals? And so, a lot of times I'll get on the phone with nonprofits, and they'll say, we just want to raise awareness. And I'll say, okay, but why do you want to raise awareness? How do you want to raise awareness? And how are you going to measure that? And they don't have those answers. So if you go to youtube.com/nonprofits, you can enroll in our nonprofit program, and we have all of these tools, including a 30-page guide that we've made to actually help nonprofits do that.
Awesome.
The first thing I thought of was a tweet that happened the night we launched at South by Southwest, and it was one of my millennial colleagues. And the tweet was, tonight with Generation Listen, public media is now ours. It's now ours. And that was just like an aha moment for me. So I think the key is empowerment, and again, it's whatever your organization is, bring them into the fold. And I was telling in a hallway conversation about, we've got 5 seconds left.
We're actually
bringing them into the C-suite, and don't leave them out of the CEO level conversations. It's absolutely critical to have those perspectives at
So
your organization.
authenticity, metrics, and empowerment. Write those things down. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.